Welcome to the explainer. Okay, let's dive right into a grammar concept that literally bends reality. Today, we're looking at how the English language handles the hypothetical, the imaginary, and, well, the downright untrue. We are exploring what grammarians call unreal or contrary to fact conditionals in the present or future. Now, I know that sounds incredibly academic, but it's actually the exact phrasing we use every single day to daydream, to wish, and to imagine how the whole world could be completely different. So, imagine for a moment, just picture it. What if you taught this class? Think about the power you'd wield. You could abolish homework entirely. You could give everyone an A. You wouldn't have to give any tests at all. It's a pretty wonderful, liberating thought, isn't it? We can build a whole new world inside that one little phrase, what if? But crash landing back to Earth here. Actually, you don't teach this class. Sorry to burst your bubble. But this stark contrast is the exact engine that drives the grammar we're dissecting today. We need a specific set of linguistic tools to clearly separate our wonderful daydreams from the cold, hard facts. So, what exactly are we looking at? Unreal, or contrary to fact grammar, is specifically used to describe situations in the present or the future that are just not actually true or real. It's kind of like the language of fake news, but, with a permitted imaginative twist. When we use these structures, we're basically flashing a massive neon sign to our listener that says, hey, what I'm about to say is purely hypothetical. Do not take this as reality. And the way we construct that neon sign is by totally messing with our standard verb tenses. This brings us to Section 1, the quirky were rule. So the crucial point here is that when we enter the realm of the unreal, we actually throw out one of the most fundamental rules of the English language. We completely ditch normal subject-verb agreement. In this realm, were is used for both singular and plural subjects. In normal factual reality, you'd say I was, he was, she was. But in the unreal conditional, the verb to be transforms. It becomes were for absolutely everyone. I were, you were, he were, the dog were. It's this grammatical quirk that acts as a giant red flag that we are officially in imagination land. Now, what's really interesting is that the rules of standard written English sometimes clash with how real people actually talk on the street. Formally, the standard textbook rule is, if I were you, I would accept their invitation. That's what you'd write in an essay. But in very informal speech, you will absolutely hear people say, if I was you, I'd accept their invitation. While was definitely pops up in casual conversation, especially with I, he, she, and it, you're gonna want to stick with were to really master standard grammar. Let's look at this rule in a fully formed sentence. If he were here right now, he would help us. Notice that quirky were sitting right there next to he. Normally, that just looks wrong. But here, it is perfectly correct because it's doing a very specific job. It's telling the listener the unspoken reality, which is that he is not here right now. We need help, he isn't here, so we are imagining a parallel universe where he is. Which brings us to Section 2, would versus could. Once we've set up our imaginary if scenario, we have to talk about the results. And in the result clause of our unreal conditional, we rely heavily on modal verbs. The two big players are would and could, and they do very different things. Would expresses a desired or a highly predictable result. It's what you fully intend to happen in that imaginary world. Could, on the other hand, expresses possible options. It essentially means would be able to, so it leaves the door wide open to choice. This brilliantly illustrates the subtle power of these words. Take our first example. If I had enough money, I would buy a car. The speaker really wants a car. They don't have the money, but if they magically did, boom, they're definitely buying it. It is a desired, absolutely predictable result. Now watch what happens when just one single word changes. If I had enough money, I could buy a car. Now the speaker is just expressing a possible option. It means they'd have the ability to buy it, but hey, maybe they'd invest the money instead or take a sweet vacation. Changing would to could shifts the entire meaning from a definite desire to a mere possibility. Let's test our pattern recognition skills in Section 3, spotting real versus unreal. We're going to put these sentences side by side to see exactly how the mechanics change. Pay close attention to the verbs here. In the real possibility, if I have enough money, I will buy a car, the verbs are present and future tense. This means it's an actual possibility. I'm checking my bank account right now, and if the funds clear, the purchase happens. But look at the unreal shift. If I had more money, I would buy a new car. The verb shifts a step back into the past tense, and will shifts to would. That back shift in time is the grammatical signal that we've left reality and completely entered pure fantasy. I don't have the money, I'm just dreaming. Let's look at another example, this time bringing back our quirky rule. On the real side, if the shirts are on sale, I will get a few. Present tense, are. This is me walking into the mall, full of hope, looking for a discount sign. It's a real, genuine possibility. On the unreal side, if the shirt were on sale, I would get a few. Boom, there's that quirky were with a singular shirt, and will changes to would. This sentence tells a somewhat tragic story. I'm staring at the price tag, there's no discount, the shirt is full price, and I'm walking away empty-handed, just imagining a world where it was cheaper. And to wrap up our comparison, let's look at ability. Real. If you are a teacher, you can help me. Present tense, are. Present ability, can. I'm just asking if this is your actual profession right now. Unreal. If you were a teacher, you could help me. We shift to were, and can shifts back to could. This implies I already know you aren't a teacher, maybe you're an accountant or a pilot, and because of that fact, you lack the ability to help me with this specific problem. Now that we have the mechanics down, let's see how this plays out in Section 4, Grammar in Action. Look at poor Grandpa here. We see him sneezing into a tissue, clearly suffering, holding a bouquet of yellow flowers at arm's length. The caption reads, "If Grandpa weren't allergic to flowers, he would bring Grandma flowers more often." This sentence perfectly captures the bittersweet nature of the unreal conditional. It allows us to express these really sweet intentions that are unfortunately blocked by physical reality. Let's map that out explicitly. The reality of the situation, the cold, hard fact, is that Grandpa is allergic. That is a present tense fact. Therefore, to talk about the opposite, we have to use our contrary to fact framework. We shift the verb. We use the quirky plural form for a singular subject, and we negate it. If he weren't allergic. We've literally stepped into a grammatical reality where his immune system behaves differently, which allows for the desired result of bringing Grandma some flowers. And this brilliantly illustrates another very practical, everyday application, commenting on other people's bad habits. Here we see two roommates laden down with an absolute mountain of pastel shopping bags, peering into a store window. The grammar tells their financial story. If they didn't spend so much time shopping, they would save a lot of money. The unstated, grounded reality here is super clear. They do spend a lot of time shopping, and therefore they absolutely do not save money. The unreal conditional lets us gently, or, maybe not so gently, suggest a better alternative to their current reality. Which brings us to the end of our explainer with a slightly absurd question straight from our source text. If you liked peas, would you eat them? It's a funny little paradox to leave you with, right? If you hate peas, the reality is you don't eat them. But if your brain were magically rewired to like them, well, what would happen? It just goes to show how much power we have to reshape our world, our habits, and even our identities just by changing a verb tense. So what imaginary world will you build with your grammar today?